I wasn't turning my camera off, just adjusting it.
Oh, I know you weren't. You're not going anywhere, Mr. Simmons.
Oh no.
You're stuck here with the rest of us.
You're in the back of the train.
You're in the
this
back
seat
of
got
the
hot
train.
somehow.
This
Oh,
seat
no.
got very hot. And we've got our e-ticket. Thank you, folks. Take a seat, pull up a chair, and pop your favorite drink as we have our very first Perfect 10 special episode of the year. Yes, that's right. We are celebrating. Oh, look at that.
A Thor soda?
Thor soda. A Thor soda.
It's the only thing I had next to me, so
no, that's
sorry.
Okay. That's the goat soda right there. No, anyway. Yes, folks, it is the spoiler room. We are celebrating 10 years of doing this crazy thing that I didn't expect to be doing as long. And we're looking at films that are celebrating their 10th anniversary along with the spoiler room. And today we're starting off. I mean, there is snow on the ground. We've got more winter weather coming. It's January. So I figured, why not kick it off with a look at the 2013 film that befuddles many people, and including maybe some people in the room tonight, Snowpiercer. Yes, that's right. And with me is a wonderful crew assembled. First off, I have the Marvel shill with me, also known as Chris Evans' Beard, also known as Mr. Will Johnson. Hello, how are you doing, Mr. Beard?
I am doing fantastic, and the reason why I have that name is because I did come with my Marvel shill fact of the day for you.
Ooh, go for it.
Snowpiercer actually had an effect on the Avengers, the movie, the Avengers. If you watch the end credit sequence where they're all eating shawarma, you'll notice that Chris Evans is like this.
Yep.
Because he had to grow his beard for this movie and couldn't shave it off. So when they filmed that scene in a pickup shot, that's why you can't see his face, because he has a Snowpiercer beard in production at that time. So
wow. That's cool. I haven't watched the shawarma scene in forever. I gotta go back and look at that now. I love those.
You won't see his face. He's got his face like in a fist like this.
Yeah, that's right, because this was filmed after or before the event. Well, kind of during, wasn't it? It was like they had to do the pickup shot. Yeah, they had to do the pickup shoots. It's kind of like Henry Cavill and the odd upper lip that a lot of people say they saw, which I still don't see, but maybe that's just me.
You had to see it in IMAX, Mark.
I guess so.
It was assaulting.
I guess I had to see it in IMAX. And yes, those dulcet tones are none other than the man who keeps coming back for more, Mr. Ian Simmons, who's also taking this ride with us tonight. He hasn't been with us for 10 years, but a few years now. How you doing, Ian?
Doing great. Yeah, we're coming up on 3 years of doing this, because today marked the first, I hate to bring up the C word, but it was the first case of COVID in Chicago.
Yeah.
Was reported 3 years ago today. I guess I saw that on the news. It was shortly after that, when we all hunkered down, that I became a regular here. So yeah, it's been awesome. And congratulations. I want to make sure I say this, because I don't think I have. Congratulations on 10 years, Mark. That's incredible.
That is amazing.
You.
That is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've seen some come and go, but for some reason I'm just like a penny. I always turn up. And I've been doing this years straight. We did take a week off, but I did a couple of years straight every week, didn't miss a week, and decided to take a week off there at the beginning of January 2023. But we're back now, 2023, Snowpiercer, and we'll give it to Chris Evans's Beard. You could give the synopsis, if you could, please, for Snowpiercer.
Oh God!
Look at Ian. Look at Ian's smile. Ian's already. He's like, I like when there's another guest here.
Well, okay. So essentially, this is a post-apocalyptic story. We, in our, because we're all, tree-hugging liberals, we all tried to solve global warming, and what happened is, it failed and killed almost everybody. So now, some of the only people that have survived are on a train, which has now been, it's called the Snowpiercer, and it's not just because it pierces through snow, because the world's like an ice age now, but the train kind of functions and as a almost like a class system, because you've got people in the back of the train and the front of the train and the middle of the train, and it's almost like all these different worlds combined, and some people are stuck in the back, some people are hiding in the front, and blah blah blah. And it's just kind of the people in the back's journey to the front, essentially, if I'm correct on that.
Pretty much, yeah. Chris Evans plays Curtis, who, along with the group of folks at the back of the train, decide to revolt because they're tired of eating protein gel bars, and they push their way to the front of this about 20 car train, and each car has a different function. And as they move along, Curtis realizes things aren't quite what they seem, and some people have their own agenda. And yeah, once he gets to the front of the train, the veil is pulled back, so to speak, and we realize the true motivation of everything going on, from secret messages he was getting in his wonderful gummy food to the behavior of certain individuals who were near the front of the car. So yeah, no, that's yeah, it's as Ed Harris's Wilford put it, it's an enclosed ecosystem, its own ecosystem. And so yeah, we'll start with you, Will. Great synopsis, thank you. And
it's okay. I mean, you had to fill in for me
well,
halfway through. So
sorry,
it was okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I know.
No, you needed to. Trust me. Like I said, yeah. Go ahead. Yes.
But I should have known better, because I know it's been a while since you watched this. I apologize for putting you on the hot seat, but
no,
that's it was worth it was worth Ian's smile.
Oh yeah, I was panicked, but all those years of teaching experience on the cuff saved me on that one a little bit.
There you go.
Go ahead.
I feel educated. I feel educated. Is what I was going to say is, how did you feel when you first saw this? Considering I think this came out after Avengers.
It did, but I was a late bloomer to it. I'm not going to lie to you. Though I am someone who does explore a lot of Asian cinema, a lot of stuff comes to me in waves, and I did kind of see this for the first time post Parasite, the Bong Joon-ho film that won Best Picture. So I was kind of like, oh, this guy has a lot to say about class. And I thought Parasite is, while I don't think it should be the #1 rated movie in the history of Letterboxd, I do think it's a great movie. And I thought it was a great, very nuanced, subtle take on class stuff. So when I went through his filmography, which I had missed, I'd heard of things. And I know this is, would this be an American film that he made? Or is this like a European co-production? Because it's a co-production. It's not a Korean film, right? It's not a Korean film.
It's a co-production. It's like an international film, because there's investors. If you notice in the credits in the beginning, there's an investment company, I think, from both Asia and from the West. So it was kind of a combined financing.
Well, regardless, I kind of felt like this would be a good entry point to kind of explore some of his back catalog. And so I kind of saw this first, and because I was kind of going through a lot of the stuff at once, I also watched Okja on Netflix, kind of like right after, like I did like a double feature. And I kind of feel like between 2013 and Parasite, which I think was 2019, and Okja was 2017, you kind of have this trilogy about, like, not class warfare, but classism and the separation of peoples. And so, a lot of that blends together for me, because I kind of saw those three all at the same time. Snowpiercer obviously is a little bit less subtle, because it's literally, classes of people separated by train cars, but still has that. It has that little apocalyptic edge that I enjoy, and I don't think it's his best film by any means. And obviously, seeing Parasite first was probably not a mistake, but it's, of all the films I've seen of his since, that's kind of been the best one to me. So it's always, you're always not going to get the best from that, but I still find it very enjoyable. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I found the cast excellent, and obviously it's a mixture of up and coming Hollywood stars at that time. Also, really great committed actors. I mean, you have what's his name? He's in all this stuff. Song Kang Ho, who's excellent, and you have John Hurt doing his thing at that point, and then Tilda Swinton, of course, is doing her full Tilda Swinton. So it's definitely I don't want to say experience because we talked about that in the pre-show, but it's something I think everyone should see and get an opinion of, even though it might not hit every box you need to make it like a great film. It's a very good one, in my opinion.
And Ian.
Well, first, Will, I'm curious, since you are such a Marvel stan, and that's not a criticism. Did you know Chris Evans was in this movie, or had it just not kind of crossed your radar? Because I would have thought that, like, if you're a big Marvel guy, then to be able to see Captain America in a non-Captain America movie would have been some kind of like a driver to pull you just to see what it was all about.
Well, and forgive me if my chronology is off, but I think Sunshine came out like long before.
Yeah, that was 2007.
This, right? So
yeah.
I mean, I had seen him in that, and obviously I had seen him in the Fantastic Four movies, unfortunately.
And not another teen movie, of course.
Well, actually, I give him a lot of that's a movie that I watched a couple of times, and he had obvious star power. He was
great.
Yeah,
great. So
Scott Pilgrim, he was in that too. Yeah,
Scott Pilgrim, he was very good. So I was aware of him, and I was aware of the film. Obviously not on the level of the Marvel level, but I would see it like I had no idea of its theatrical release. I would see posters or like a DVD, and I'd see Chris Evans on it. I was like, hey, he's got a beard. That looks pretty cool. And I just never found the time to watch it. So I never was like, oh, that's Captain America, I'm going to go check that out. I just kind of it just kind of passed me by, like I said, until Parasite hit, and then I was like, okay, let me check this guy out. So.
Okay. Yeah. I saw this at the Music Box here in Chicago when it first came out in 2013. I'd heard all the hype, and as we talked exhaustively on the pre-show, fun, but into great detail of what happens when I'm highly recommended something and I finally catch up with it after a certain period of time. Sometimes it works out. In this case, it most certainly didn't. I was not a fan of Snowpiercer. I vowed walking out of the Music Box that I would never watch it or think about it again. Beyond, I think I did a podcast back in the Kicking the Seat audio podcast days. But then Mark announced it as one of the films for this big anniversary year. So I was like, well, I'm going to go watch Snowpiercer again. And I did. And it wasn't as bad an experience this time, only because I knew when it was going to end. But I still think, here's the thing. I almost did not watch Parasite because I saw advertising, from the creator of Snowpiercer. I'm like, fuck no. But then I watched Parasite, and I love Parasite. I think Parasite is the grown-up version of what Snowpiercer was trying to accomplish. Snowpiercer is a metaphor in search of a movie, and it's so ham-handed, ridiculous, and dumb that I can't handle it. If this movie had been like set on a space station, like Elysium, I think it was also not a very good movie, but it's that Matt Damon thing about the people on Earth. They find their way to get up into the space station where all the rich people of the galaxy live or whatever and take it over. That makes more sense, because if you think about the train and you look at the train and how it operates, it's like the TARDIS. There's no way. I know it's supposed to be this big fantastical thing, but the plague, or the what is it called? The CW7, which is the chemical that, okay, all of the Earth today can't agree on climate change and what to do about it. But the entire planet got together to send all these C7 rockets into the atmosphere, which destroyed the planet and turned everything into the second ice age. So this was in 2014. Somewhere along that timeline, a guy, Willy Wonka, or Wilford, I guess, because he's got a giant W and he ends up trying to give the giant chocolate factory away to the guy at the end of the movie. It's the same thing. He builds a train that, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez proposed something similar to this a few years ago and almost got laughed out of Congress. Let's build a train that literally goes around the world. And they did it. We need to back the hell up for a second before we get into our mystical fantasy about class struggles and say, how does that work? The answer is it doesn't. There's no way this thing would have been able to chug 10 miles with that many cars, because you described it as being 20 cars. I think it's much bigger than that, because when they are wrapped around the mountain, there's a shootout between people like on opposite sides of the train. There's like this giant chasm between them. I'm like, this doesn't work. My question is, where the hell do most of these people sleep? Because they go through like a rave club and a drug den and all this other stuff. I'm like, no, where do these people sleep and eat and crap? Like, it's a comic book. It's great if you don't think about it, but it's also a movie that you're ostensibly supposed to think about, because they're like, it's a metaphor for whatever. Metaphors make you think. If you think more than 5 seconds about Snowpiercer, it falls apart. I'm sorry, that's my rant. I'm going to sit back and let you guys tell me why I'm completely wrong, because I'm fascinated.
No, you kind of nailed on the head maybe my problem with it, because I like what you said about a metaphor searching for a movie, because, like I said, it hits you on the head with a lot of this stuff, obviously. And that was kind of what I took out of it. Obviously, I thought, production-wise, it was well done and the acting's fine. And I suspended the disbelief a little bit more than you did, like in terms of overthinking it. Because I was like, oh yeah, an entire car is just a classroom. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it definitely is reaching for something, and it's not quite grabbing it. And I actually think that's kind of, I've hesitated, much like you hesitated with Parasite. I've hesitated to watch Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder, because I've heard so many great things about it. And I can't say I've seen all of Bong Joon-ho's films, but Snowpiercer, The Host, another one that I think gets like that universal praise of like the greatest monster movie ever. And it's like, I was like, that's fine. It's okay. And then Okja was weird, just as weird as Snowpiercer. It seems like there's a lot of great ideas out there in the ether that are looking to be grasped onto firmly, and it's not doing the case. And that's kind of where Snowpiercer had me too. It's like, I like what he's trying to say. I see what he's trying to do, but not quite getting there.
Yeah.
Well, it's based off of a graphic novel, and I haven't read the graphic novel, but this plays out a lot like a graphic novel, because in a graphic novel, comics, we all read comics. We're all big comic book fans here. They don't always get into how everything in the world works all the time. Now, it at times, depending on the issue, it sometimes feels like it's kind of in a slightly parallel world where, okay, this is how the tech works, just roll with it. And I think that's what they were trying to go with this. Now, for me, it's a strange mixed bag. And it's the reason why I picked it is because when I watched it the first time, I'm like, I get what they're saying. I get what they were trying to do, but I am in the camp of, while I did enjoy it, don't get me wrong, I love my weird films, and this is a weird film as far as how it plays out and the characters in that. It has all those elements, but you're right, with it being in this train, you can't help but go, yeah, but and as much as I was pushing that question back the whole time, because I dig sci-fi that's trying to be different, and it's definitely doing that, and it also has a message, and they touch on things, but it never quite comes to fruition. That's why I wanted to see the TV show, because I heard the TV show is really good, and this is a concept I think that would work better as a TV show, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. I heard good things about it, as I said, but because there's a lot of interesting ideas and concepts, like with the different trains and how Wilford, he developed this train ahead of time. And then, he saw it coming, he said, and people didn't believe him. And I'm like, well, given the way this guy's dealing with stuff, because we come to find out, spoiler room, folks, 10 years now, spoiler room, if you did think we're going to spoil the ending right away, you're wrong. Because Wilford, as it turns out, states that he's been working with this one guy in the back of the train this whole time to maintain the balance, because the whole thing is the train is a representative of Earth and it's an ecosystem, and you need to maintain balance. And occasionally you got to kill some extra folk to maintain that balance, because you can't wait for natural selection to run its course. But there's an interesting idea that I think might be hinted at here, that did Wilford, being the rich guy that he is, because he's like a Bezos in this film. he's like a Tesla. Nicholas, he's like Tesla in this film quite a bit. In that, he has this concept. He's rich. I'm like, I wonder if he developed the CW7 on purpose to freeze the world so he could have his train be used. And he could have full control, because they treat him, those in the upper cars treat him like a freaking god. They create the engine like a god. In just 17 years, they've developed this religion. Tilda Swinton is a devout follower. In fact, her character, Mason, refers to it as the divine engine. And, so there's all these wonderful concepts that get touched on and then they blow by.
It's an interesting idea, and I think in a different kind of movie, and maybe they explore it in the TV show. I don't know if the TV show is like an alternate take on this story, or if it's like a prequel or what, but I don't think he developed CW7 because, we established at the end of the movie how lonely he is at the front of the car. Now,
True.
the guy is a rat bastard, and this gets back to my question of where does he sleep? Once we get to that front car with the engine, it's like you've got a little like table, and he's got a grill and like a place setting, and he can have some steak. Where does he sleep?
The beds are built into the wall. You noticed everything was built into the walls. So,
right, I guess, but I don't. The thing is, like, this guy is supposed to be the head. I guess the head honcho, the god or whatever. You'd think he'd be a bit more ostentatious and he had less comfort and amenities than people like 6 cars ahead of him, where they had like the full like library suite where there's like that one lady like relaxing and reading books and looking out the window. This guy looked pretty miserable. So I don't think, and maybe that could even be a story in a much better film. Like, yeah, I thought this was going to work out, but it turns out I'm really bored because I need people, but now I can't admit it or else everyone else would kill me. That's the other thing, is this movie doesn't understand people at all. It reduces everybody to one-dimensional class caricatures. That goes for everyone from the poor people to the rich people. It's ironic because this movie features actors in it who are millionaires, but it's like the people who wrote and directed this movie, including Bong Joon-ho, have never met a wealthy person. And if they have, they've only met like the top 0.6% of wealthy people who are truly evil and one-dimensional.
Yeah, well,
it is a sci-fi, though. It is a kind of a fanciful film. It's
but it's supposed to be saying something. Like, if this movie is a metaphor, it's like, we want you to watch this movie so you can get some kind of an insight into your world or the human condition or whatever. I have to be able to recognize it. And I don't recognize anything in this movie except for what certain people probably watch and get from certain kinds of news and ascribe to other groups of people and the entire world. And it's just a cynical, like, 8th graders, junior's first conspiracy level that I just don't have time for. Like, I'd rather go and read Watchmen than watch this movie.
Yeah, I could see that. The thing is, the way it plays out is just interesting. You've got all this talent, which the talent in this film. You got Chris Evans, Tilda Swinton, Ed Harris, John Hurt, for crying out loud, Octavia Spencer, for crying out.
Yes, the production had money in order to hire actors, but as far as what they bring to it, what do they bring?
Well, that's what
them doing their thing.
Well, what I'm saying is, where I was going with it is that it shows you either the source material or the script that they have. They hired all these people, and even they, at times, don't put in the best performances, though they're trying. And it's because of the base material. I always say you can have all the talent in the world. If you don't have a solid script, a solid script, your film is still going to fall flat. I mean, you might get some people say, hey, well, the performance is pretty, but the film overall is going to fall flat. And in all honesty, I'm watching Snowpiercer. I'm like, I should be enjoying this a lot more than I am. And I do enjoy it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Visually in it, I'm like, I should really be enjoying. I really want to like this film. But at the end of the day, when it's done, I'm like, I feel like I got some Cliff's Notes of something that's far deeper.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like I got the Cliff's Notes of something that's far deeper that they were trying to go for. I get the messages, I get the metaphor, I get the visualization, everything, the symbolism. It's not that I don't get it. I think it just breezes through it too quickly. It opts for the action entertainment value more so than, say, the message and the drama that you could get out of this film, because they even allude to Ko Asung plays Yona, who seems to be clairvoyant, and there's this bit where, oh, are you clairvoyant? Because she can tell who's behind the door before they open it as they go from car to car. And then they don't do anything with it. It's like this little 4-minute stance of her being clairvoyant and saying what's behind the door, and then that's it. We're not using it anymore.
Well, I mean, they do hint at the fact. I mean, it's right there at the end of the movie that she is actually a mutant, because there's a little kid, Timothy, that when the train is about to blow, like the gate, she wraps herself and the little boy in a fur coat, and the entire train blows up, and their car gets scattered like everything else to the four winds. And when they wake up, they're totally fine.
Well, no,
That's her mutant ability.
I will defend that. The reason they're perfectly fine is because her dad and Curtis wrapped themselves around those two. So when the
giant fireball can't make its way through 3 people.
That's I'm just saying.
You see it in the frame. I watched this on Amazon today. You see the fireball engulf that entire cluster of people. And yet 5 minutes later, when they're getting up, they're like,
they were wrapped in the bodies of the other two. They sacrificed.
Do you know how many people survived the Twin Tower attacks, Mark?
Well, they didn't wrap each other up. I'm sure if 2 people were in the middle of the other 2 people, they might be able to roll down the side of the bed. Anyway,
sound science right there. You can't deny that sound science that Mark just put out there.
Trust the science.
Yeah, they can roll down a thing with the 2 people between. Seriously, that's.
Yeah, and that
I'm much more comfortable just saying she's a mutant.
If you want to, I can look past that, especially for the type of film it is. I just figured the bodies, they protected the kids enough to where they didn't fry, and I'm okay with them to surviving. The thing that I have with it, and the problem is the script paints itself into the corner in that this is supposed to be the last of humanity. This train gets annihilated at the end because they want to escape. As far as I'm concerned, there's 2 people left. There's Yona, and then there's little Timmy, who they rescued from the engine, because we come to find out that, oh yeah, Wilford, parts says they put him go extinct. And so he goes to the back of the car, grabs kids, puts them as replacement parts for the engine until they die or get too big to serve their purpose. And then he goes and gets more kids.
That was a masterful, monstrous reveal. That is the one thing I'm willing to give this movie, was that's a great idea, and it's still chilling.
Well, not only is it chilling,
Ed Harris is so cavalier about, oh yeah, we just got a kid from the back and put him in there. Like, what?
Well, I mean, Mr. Beard, Will, how'd you feel about that reveal? Do you think at least that was handled?
Oh yeah. Well, I think, and once again, I am a little bit. I had already experienced Parasite at that point, which
Sure.
like I said, had a lot of more nuance and subtlety and play. I mean, there's so many hilarious things in Parasite, but there's also like images that stick in my head that are just haunting, like, you know, the person coming up the stairs, or, you know, that dark cellar stairs or whatever. Like, so, I mean, he's technically very good at that kind of haunting imagery. It is a great reveal. But yeah, I actually barely remembered that till you guys brought it up, though. So like I know I don't see, and I guess maybe that's where I can bring my perspective in for not rewatching it for the show, like I should have done, like a person that helps support programs like this. But maybe that's also indicative of the effect. Like I said, if you see something like Parasite, I saw that 3-4 years ago, and it still has that power over me, that visual, you know, story power. Whereas with this, like, you had to remind me of that shocking reveal. Now when I think about it, like Ian says, that is kind of horrifying, and I'm remembering that imagery, but it didn't really stick with me. So I don't know if that helps. I do remember that, much like a lot of post-apocalyptic films like Waterworld or Waterworld, there's always like, there's there's at the end of the movie there's a polar bear, and the polar bear is like, hey guys, and then it's like, oh, okay, and then you may be getting the idea that, okay, maybe that system was, you're led to believe it's the last of humanity, but maybe there's actually still more stuff out there. It's not as bad as everyone assumes. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the polar bear is kind of to imply that life found a way. And the minute you see the polar bear, I do like how that's set up, because with these two, it makes you wonder too. Your brain starts going, as much as they try to sell, at least the people on the train try to sell that they're the last of humanity, makes you wonder if they actually were the last of humanity, or if other people found other ways to survive that they just aren't alluding to, because either one, they don't know, or right, two, they want to keep people on the train because Wilford wants his balance, because he got that theme, and all from the scene of the polar bear. So I mean, as far as that goes, the setup goes for that.
Cultist stuff, I mean,
yeah, they allude to the cultist stuff for sure, especially through who is probably my favorite bizarre character. It is Tilda Swinton. She's in a different movie almost with her character versus everybody else, really.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. She's like that in Okja too, though. Also, Jake Gyllenhaal looks like Dr. Robotnik in Okja, and I'm surprised they didn't cast him in Sonic, because he's basically playing Dr. Robotnik. But she's, for whatever reason, when she gets hired for these Bong Joon-ho films, she's just like, okay, here's the script. I'm going to do something completely different, and let's see if it all matches and meshes up together. So.
Yeah.
That's about what we can say about this.
I mean, I like Tilda Swinton. It's just that I'm like, okay, here she is, and she's doing if she had only been in that one scene, like her first scene, and we never saw her again, I think that would have been fine. But there was no surprise in her character. Like, I had her pegged from the moment she came on screen, and then she's got, she doesn't make it to the end of the film, which I guess is a mercy, but it's just like every time she comes back on, I'm like, okay, here's another 6 minutes of her like saying something that's meant to get everybody in the audience outraged, like, oh my God, how can you think about people like this? They're all just like property and cattle, and oh my God, the outrage and clutching pearls. I'm like, yeah, I got that the first minute she was on screen, and there's 25 minutes of her in this thing.
Well, I think it goes back a little bit, and I may be way off on this because it's my old perception of the film that, like I said, a lot of it did not stick with me. But you were mentioning before, like, you don't believe in this world because you don't see anything in it that's real or whatever. Like, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to give some context to that. Like, the movie, two problems. One, the opening narration establishes that the whole problem started in 2014. So it's not like we're talking about this is the year 2077 and we've got the space age technology to build a freaking train around the world. Again, you can't get countries to agree on a global warming solution. You're sure, I don't care how rich you are, you're not rich enough to build a train that goes around the world and grease enough people in different countries with different political systems to let you run a train around the world. I'm sorry, but yes, it's grounded in 2014 today, but go ahead.
Right. Well, I was going to say I actually support you on that because when you think of like some of the all-time post-apocalyptic stories, right? Be it the Mad Max films or even Waterworld. I already mentioned Waterworld once. Shout out to Waterworld, I guess. What kind of grounds you in that world and makes it believable is those remnants of what we know. Like, you know, like in Waterworld, you see dudes on water skis. We know what water skis are. You know, we see like the remnants of a skyscraper sticking out of the thing. We know what a skyscraper is. You know, and like in Mad Max, you know, you see vehicles and you see old gas stations or whatever. You kind of have that grounded, and that was another problem I had is that sure I know what a train is, but none of that, like it doesn't feel like any of 2014 came with them on that train. It's like this futuristic vision of what reality is. It's kind of, it doesn't feel right. Like I don't ever feel grounded, you know?
It started in 2014 and I mean it's 17 years later, so it's 2031, but they had this technology that was developed in 2014. So I get what you guys are saying, though it is.
Yeah, I mean, the film might as well be 2014 because as far as the people on the train goes, everything was frozen in time once they boarded that train. There were no more advancements. The other thing that's just so weird is like the opening narration again, it said, all life became extinct. I'm like, so we're going to be watching a movie about ghosts? What? No, there's several hundred people on this train. What are you talking about? I don't know.
So I think where this film falls into its problem is one of the same problems that was it the Luc Besson film that came out a few years ago, the
Valeria
Valeria
system thing,
Valerian. I think it falls in the same problem that Valerian did, and even to the point, though I did enjoy it more than Snowpiercer, John Carter, is that they're trying to hold true to the material, and the material is old. The graphic novel that this is based off of was published in 1982. So, if you put it in context of when this story was made, 1982, 2014 seemed to be like in the future, and the way all sci-fi is, it amplifies technological advances and such. So, at least in some context, I can kind of understand it. But the fact that this film, you know, it starts at 2014 and it's supposed to be 17 years later, you're like, I'm living in this world right now, and
but you can do it right, and the Blade Runner movies are how you can do that right. Other than the fact that Blade Runner thought that Pan Am and you know, a bunch of other things would still exist, but what I mean by that is like when they made Blade Runner in 1982, they looked at like where technology was at in 1982 and where it possibly could be in 2019. But then when they made the sequel, 2049, they looked at the technology that existed in Blade Runner the movie and advanced it from there. So like they made a conscious effort to try to ground it in some kind of reality. That way you can understand that, like, yes, this was 1982 technology in the movie, you know, pretending to be 2019, but they still managed to, you know, develop it and evolve it and make it so that when you're watching 2049, you're like, okay, that makes sense in the context of that universe. Like it makes sense that what we thought would exist in 2019 advanced from that, if that makes sense. So you can still do it right and make it effective, you know, without sacrificing, you know, to your story or even bringing attention to it. I think if I'm correct. I mean, Ian, you're basically saying like it's bringing so much attention to these surface details of things that don't even, when you're talking about the richest of the rich, the evilest of the evil, whereas there's no nuance or subtlety to even some of the design of it or the characters. Like you said, they're mostly stereotypes and things like that. So,
well, I mean, my question about the whole technology thing is, and I have not read the graphic novel. I didn't realize it was that old. So that makes it 40 years. Wow. But my question is the graphic novel true to the film in that their imagining of this catastrophe also happened in 1982, or did they set it to happen in 2014? Because the movie, or 2013 or whatever, because the movie says essentially all these problems started happening this year as you're watching it. The stuff that we're going through as regular Americans leads to catastrophe essentially next year. Is the graphic novel saying 1982, everything goes to hell in 1983, and then everyone boards the train, within that time frame? Or is it like in the far-flung year of 2014, when people can agree to build trillion-dollar trains around the world for no reason, ...
According to the Wikipedia, because again, I unfortunately have not read the graphic novel either, but according to it, the first volume, which is called The Escape, it's after an environmental catastrophe induces the Ice Age. So this was back then. They didn't say necessarily it was climate change or that man-made. It just said an environmental catastrophe induces a new Ice Age. That's the most that at least the Wikipedia leans towards.
I mean, that makes sense, because in the 1970s, the concern wasn't, again, it wasn't referred to as climate change, but there was the concern of the second ice age with global cooling. And the conversation evolved over the decades to be more concerned about the planet warming. But yeah, that checks out, where they could think, much like the 2014 film, the premise is the planet's heating up, so we have to send these rockets up to cool it down. In 1982, because the fear was essentially a second ice age, you're like, well, it just happened, and so we have to deal with it.
What's interesting is reading just a little bit of the synopsis of what it's saying. That's far more interesting than what they end up doing in the movie.
Oh wow! I got to read this graphic novel. Is it available?
Yeah, I do too. Well, yeah, it's out there. It's in like 3 parts apparently, and there was a prequel as well. There's actually 4 volumes, and then there's a prequel.
And I think probably because everyone said this movie was amazing, he made like a couple. I think he made another. Said a 4th volume in 2015.
Yep. Yeah.
And then prequels. There's stuff going on all the way up to 2019. So like it went from 1982 to 2019. I guess is the
right.
Wow.
And the TV show came out in 2020, just before.
Sean Bean's it. So
crazy. He probably dies. But the thing with Snowpiercer is, I didn't hate it, but I remember when it was getting a lot of hype when it came out. When I finally watched it, I was like, this is what, and now granted, people were running off of the Marvel high, right? Chris Evans's beard. You had the Marvel high a bit, and you kind of get that with certain blockbusters when an actor or whatnot, especially a particular one who's charismatic, is in a big blockbuster film. People seek out the other stuff that person's in. And so, Snowpiercer comes in and people dug Chris Evans. And I think maybe they saw him more as still Captain America in this than his character Curtis. But another thing, as I mentioned, it plays out like a graphic novel in many respects. It also plays out like an anime in many respects, because, and no offense, I love anime. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love freaking Cowboy Bebop, but I'm wondering if this film would have hit better if it had been animated. just by animating it and making it more of an anime, because in anime too, you get sections to where you've got technology that if you actually took a beat and thought about it, you're like, wait, how's it? But you buy into it better because it's animated.
you're making this worse for yourself because you're the one who's trying to defend it, and now you're like, what if this movie didn't exist as it is at all? It was something else.
I'm not fully.
What do you think about that? It's like, well, it's great.
I'm not fully defending it as I came out and said this isn't one of my stronger films, but
well, it actually ties into, and I don't know how all the mechanics
go ahead.
work. I don't know if you released the pre-show banter before or after, or as a separate thing, but like, I think this is to follow the theme of what we talked about before this live recording. Like me and Ian with certain movies, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, whatever. This is one of those movies that was like, you must see this. And it just kind of, when I watched it, I was like, yeah, I should love this. And everyone tells me it's great, but what am I missing? And then I put the blame on myself. And then, I wonder if I should be doing that, because I think we do, in a way, even when we try to rebel against it, we have sometimes herd mentality, and we're like, okay, if everyone else loves it, what am I missing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thought I have anyway. I go like, what's wrong with me? Instead of me going like, well, all you are idiots. Like, but
I had that same thing with La La Land. Everybody's is a musical. I love musicals. I love musicals, right? Okay. Everybody was praising it. YouTube Reviewiverse just orgasmic over La La Land. I watched La La Land and I was like, Ryan Gosling's got small ears. That's what I take from the entire thing, is that he's got small ears and he tried to explain jazz to a character he shouldn't be explaining jazz to. Okay.
Why is that because he's black?
No, because that guy was far more talented than him. But besides that, that film, there was a scene in there that was like, wait, this film has all this talent and money behind it, and that shot literally looks like someone took a GoPro and ran into a party and jumped into a pool. I did not see, I enjoyed it okay, but I was just not floored by La La Land, and everybody else was just like oozing over it. And I was like you, Will, is like, I don't know what I'm missing. I watched it and it was decent, but I wasn't thinking it was the best thing since sliced bread. I'll even say Everything Everywhere All at Once isn't the best thing since sliced bread, but it was one of my probably most enjoyable films that I liked last year. In the context of last year, in the grand scheme of things, best ever film. It's in the top list, but I mean, I've watched too many films to count.
I know where you're going, but like La La Land's a bad example for me because I hate that film with the fire of burning sun. So I don't know if I can say that, because that was one where I confidently, I mean, we did an episode on Cinephile Hissy Fit where Don was getting all over me about it, but
no,
yeah, I just, yeah, he's,
but with Snow, to bring it back to Snow, to bring it back to Snowpiercer, there's a lot of great ideas in here, a lot of great concepts, and a lot of things that I enjoy in sci-fi that are included in here. At its core, though, it is lacking a number of things, and there are head scratch moments that if you just take a beat, you go, yeah, so I didn't hate it. I enjoy it. I find it entertaining. At the same time, I don't think that this is, oh my God, this is just a phenomenal film. I will say this is the director getting his feel for what later we would get with Parasite. That's far more refined. I mean, directors and filmmakers have to start somewhere, have to explore things and try things. And it almost feels like he's doing that here with Snowpiercer, in that he's getting the feel for this material. This is something he's exploring, that he's developing, that he would refine and do better for sure in Parasite.
Well, yeah, he tries to, like I said, I feel like there's kind of an unofficial trilogy,
right,
of these themes of films, and Okja being the next one. And that one is expanded a little bit more. It's a little bit more, obviously it's not on a train. It's,
right.
It's actually dealing with farmers and corporations and eco-terrorists, and it's class stuff. It's a little bit broader.
Right.
And then, like I said, I think he took the ideas of containing it like in Snowpiercer and broadening it for like a wider audience with Okja, and then found that perfect balance with Parasite. So
and Ian has no opinion. It's like he despises this film. No, just kidding.
Well, I mean, I do, and I don't. The thing is, the more you talk about Okja, I was like, oh yeah, I did see that. I didn't like that movie either.
No, it's like this one. It's a metaphor looking for a movie. Is what, as you dubbed it. It's the same.
I mean, Ian, you nailed it on the head. I'm not going to sit here and say that Snowpiercer was amazing. It's not. It's got an amazing cast. It's got some amazing fun ideas. As far as the actual execution goes, it's lacking. We've gotten sci-fi that's covered similar topics better in the same amount of time. And if people say, well, you can't criticize, I'm like, no, I'm like, when this film was made, I get it that it was based off of some older material, but there's some great concepts and moments and stuff in here, but at the same time, I think it could be better. Yes. I didn't go back and look at, I think I reviewed it on my show at one point because I've been on YouTube now 17 years. So I would have probably reviewed it. I haven't looked back to see how I felt about it back then, but watching it at least this time around, 2023 mark was just like, it's okay. It breezes by stuff I would have liked to see explore more, and I couldn't help but falling back to Highlander.
Oh, of course. Naturally.
Because you had the world trying to fix itself because of the environment, which is what we found out in that film that they call Highlander 2, where he put the world into darkness while trying to fix the environment, the ozone, because that was the big thing in the 80s. And I was like, okay, so Connor McLeod came up with the CW7 and he was trying to fix the world and he ended up freezing the world. Okay, I like this, where this is going more. He's
got to cut the head off the train. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, again, there's a lot of moments and things in here that I kind of wish they would have pushed the envelope more that they didn't. Like the decadence of the front cars go even further. I know it was going for, it's rated R, but I'm just saying, go for the decadence even further than what they had. But also, come on, seriously. So the goo bars that they feed, the protein bars that they feed the back of the train, those are made of bugs. I'm like, you had the perfect Soylent Green moment there and you ruined it. And the only reason I say that, and it sounds sick and I'm twisted, and maybe I am sick and I am.
You are.
I am. Thank you. I'm glad you, Ian, I'm sure would agree as well. I'm sick and twisted. See, look at thumbs up from him. But I think, they acted disgusted, like, oh my God, it's bugs. I'm like, actually, crickets and that, okay, that's, why is that disgusting? Now, if it was people parts in the grinder that was making the goo, which is where I thought they were going, because I'm like, where are they, I'm like, I understand they're breeding bugs and it's easy to breed bugs, but I'm like, they kept talking about, well, so every so often we have to kill a bunch of people in a mock revolt to keep the balance. I'm like, well, what are you going to do with all the bodies? That's a lot of protein right there.
That, I was just thinking as you were talking about those bug bars, that would have been a great kind of chilling second reveal. Like they think, oh, we've just been eating bugs. But when it gets up to Wilfred's office, wherever, he'd be like, yeah, the bugs are just for color. We needed something else for the actual protein. And then slides open one of those vaults and it's just like like all this steak they've been eating, all this sushi is just, the peasants.
The peasants. Well, I mean, they allude to the cannibalism earlier. I mean, you have Chris Evans giving some monologue about how, he was one of the guys that was going around and how he shouldn't know how baby meat tastes like. I mean, it's a chilling monologue. It's actually one of the better moments in this film it's a dark moment, but I actually like Chris Evans's Curtis in this, as he's kind of revealing the way things initially were in the back cart, and maybe that's why they didn't go with cannibalism in the grinder of what the protein bars were made. But thinking back to it, I'm like, actually, that would have given it even more impact, because here he thought that they stopped cannibalism because people were just cutting off their limbs and sharing that meat back in the day before they started getting the protein bars. And then you come to find out the protein bars are just more people.
Well, and I think they could have worked at that. There could have been something like, yeah, that's why we left those rear cars alone, as we were studying, like, can you subsist on people? Like, that was, they were a test group.
But, and again, I mean, we're exploring maybes and what ifs here, but
maybe they do this in the show. Maybe they because it's 30 episodes, so I would imagine they have to dig into. They have to. I mean, in a movie, I mean, like I said, I wasn't as upset about it as much as Ian was, but I would feel like in a TV show, if you're watching it week to week, you've got to try to do something to explain how everything is, because once you're in episode 6 and you have no explanation, it just doesn't make any sense, then you're gonna have to move on. But apparently it's on for 3 seasons. It was a success. Sorry.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe they address that stuff. I don't know. Are either of you planning on watching said series?
I might now, after revisiting the movie.
I'll probably read the comics. I mean, 3 seasons. I don't know if they get off the train. I'm just reminded of Will Wheaton's line from Stand By Me. He's like, Wagon Train's a really cool show, but do you ever notice they never get anywhere? They just keep wagon training.
That's true. But, with this film, I honestly, it's got this. I think that if this film doesn't have the star power it has, it goes direct to video, even though the director involved, but with the star power that they got, because he was I remember him being kind of the hot director at the time and getting this material. And so everybody kind of wanted to work with him, especially after The Host blew up quite a bit with a bunch of people, but even with them, I mean, Octavia Spencer actually has one of the better deaths. It sounds weird, but she has one of the better death scenes I've seen in a recent movie. I like her scene quite a bit. She ends up getting shot because they end up fighting this one guy who you almost think is a Terminator, because he just takes ultimate damage. I mean, I'm like, okay, are they going to reveal he's a cyborg? I mean, we've already got a train. We've already got a train that runs forever, but she gives the way she handles it and everything. It's like, wow, there's actually a little bit of weight here to the scene, and then we move on. But her scene, though, she brings it at least a little bit in there. So I mean, I think there's fits and spurts in this film that I really enjoy, and then the rest of it I think is okay. I didn't mind watching it again, but at the same time, I think it's still a thin movie.
Yeah. Because of the cannibalism.
Not because of the cannibalism. Lack of cannibalism.
My final thought on it can be summed up thusly. I had the option renting this on Amazon for $3.99 or buying it on Amazon for $5.99. I rented it, and I stand by my decision.
What about you, Will? What's your final thought?
Well, obviously, I was unprepared by not rewatching it for the show, and now I don't think I'll ever watch it because the entire time I'm be thinking about what Ian was talking about. No, that's fine. That's totally fine. This is one of the rare times where this has happened on Cinephile. He's fit a few times too, where I'll be. Because when you were like, "Hey, let's talk about Snowpiercer," I was like, "Yeah, that's a pretty good movie. I pretty like it." And now I think I hate it. So I think I actually don't. Any positive memories I have of it, I think have gone out the window at this point. I think they were false memories implanted like a replicant. They're not real.
We've crushed Will's memories of Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer for me is the worst film I've ever seen. equipment.
Wow. I would not go that far. I would say it's for select tastes. If you like the performers in it, you could watch it for that and the ideas. And you see here the budding ideas that are expressed better in his later films.
Yes.
You know, so that's where I kind of enjoy it from, and approach it from that. It's sci-fi, and especially when it came out, it was a different sci-fi that wasn't a superhero film.
Mhm.
I think it gets accepted a little better if it's science fiction, why even make it on Earth? Just make it a planet that had this happen, that these are people. You know what I mean? There's just a few choices I think that if they took out, you might be able to let some other things go. But the fact that it is on Earth, again, especially with the technology and when it takes place, even for a sci-fi, it's a little bit harder to separate that and to buy into that concept. And if you can't buy into at least that all these people have been able to live on this train for 17 years that just keeps going around the world, well, then the rest of the film is going to be even a harder sell for you. So there you have it, folks. Snowpiercer. And as I'm going to do with every one of these special Perfect 10 episodes, we'll go through real quick of some of the wide release films that came out this month in 2013. Prepare yourselves, folks. Yes, A Haunted House came out, as well as Gangster Squad and Zero Dark 30 ended up coming out at this time. Then there was a direct-to-video film, Storage 24, which I actually enjoyed. Then they also had The Last Stand came out in 2013. I can't believe that film's that old, with Arnold Schwarzenegger back to his action roots. The wonderfully received Movie 43 came out in 2013.
The one with Hugh Jackman with the balls on his chin, right?
I haven't even seen Movie 43 just because that was considered the worst of the year by so many people.
Oh.
Those people are all dumb. Movie 43 is brilliant.
And
yeah, Razzies did it get how many Razzies?
Yeah, Razzies. It swept the Razzies, I think, pretty much.
And rightfully so. I will not disagree with them. It is at once the worst and the best movie of 2013.
It's one of those films. Then he also had the J-Lo Jason Statham epic Parker. Then you have a film that we will be watching later this year, or maybe next month, depending on how things go at the end of this episode, which was Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, came out in January. Then you also, and that was about it.
Wow.
I think you had I will take back. Yeah, I'm sorry. You do have a few others. Real quick, there was this movie that apparently was called Texas Chainsaw 3D that exists. That exists. I paid money for that movie. Very few films make me regret buying a ticket for it. That was one of them. Do your thing, cause just that was how January. That's how January 2013 started out. That was the first movie wide release of the year. Was Texas Chainsaw 3D, which
that
did
movie
not.
Unlike Piranha, the Piranha sequel remake, they should have called that movie Texas Chainsaw 3 Double D.
They should, yeah, 3 Double D with a shirt that will not move. They did that well. No matter how fast that buzzsaw blade got close to the shirt, it would not move. It was amazing. Anyway. So now we're gonna try this, folks. This is the first time I've tried this. We're at the end of the episode, and we will decide now, before we get our license to shill, what the next movie is for next month is going to be. Now, before we could do canon, shoot the cannon, or take a stab, well, it's the perfect 10. It's hard to do. So we just have ourselves the Wheel of Random.
Oh,
wow.
So we have a Wheel of Random.
Let's look at Mark's tabs. What has he been looking at?
This technology is just as advanced as the technology in Snowpiercer.
So we are going to look at we're going to spin this, and we're going to see what our next film is next month for this. So let's go. There it goes.
Wow.
It's spinning, and it's the Evil Dead remake. I have to see if I can convince Mr. Derek Carey to come on the show. And
I've never seen that. I try not to be a snob about things because I learned, and I know Ian's going to rake me over the coals for this, but like I did that with Halloween because the original Halloween is in my top 5 all time. So I refused to see the Rob Zombie ones, even though I like Rob Zombie, just because I had this purity for the original series or whatever. And then I ended up watching them like 15 years later, and I was like, oh, I love both of these. Well, I don't really love the first one that much, but I don't know. I'm still sticking to my guns with like I'm a Raimi only Evil Dead person. So I've never seen the remake, but I mean I've heard good things, so I don't know.
It depends on who you ask. So we will, but Evil Dead remake is next month for February. Perfect for Valentine's Day month, right?
I'm gonna be sick that week.
We'll just get you and Derek on, and you both could just flame the film, and I'll sit back.
Well,
Derek already. There was a time when Derek didn't talk to me for like 7 years, so I want to keep things friendly.
Derek didn't like it either. Derek
over
didn't.
Evil
He
Dead.
didn't.
He didn't talk to you about Evil Dead remake.
No, it was something else.
Oh, okay.
No,
movie related though.
Okay. I was just like, yeah. Did that murder stick or like is that supposed to happen? Okay.
No. He didn't care for Evil Dead remake either by a long shot. He has thoughts on it. So.
Well, I'm not going to invite myself, but I would be happy to watch it if you want somebody on there. That's pretty strict on the Raimi verse only.
We'll see what crew members vote for that one, folks. But now you get a little taste of what we'll be covering for our Perfect 10 episode next month. I hope you've enjoyed this Perfect 10 episode as we celebrate 10 years of doing this insanity. And now, as always, I give the hashtag license to shill to my crew members. So Will, please, license to shill is yours.
Well, does that mean I talk about my Marvel theories?
About you talk about
Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania? Am I shilling now? I
need to get more coffee.
We don't have that much time. We're trying to wrap up the show here.
That's true, and my computer is literally about to die. So, no, Cinephile Hissy Fit, folks. We're hitting episode 100 real soon. Believe it or not, can't believe we've been around that long. Not as long as Mark's been around. He's been around since dinosaurs walked the earth. But we please check out Cinephile Hissy Fit. We have great guests all the time. We've had Mark. We have some episodes with Mark in the can, ready to go on Stargate and Clue. Okay. We have had Ian on before in a pseudo way. We kind of stole a broadcast. We talked about Spider-Man 3, but we're going to have Ian on too. But we have great guests on there. Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your favorite shows.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I had the honor of being on the show. It's always a pleasure, and very humbled to be on someone else's show. And Mr. Simmons, please, license to shill is yours.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel where we do reviews, interviews, live streams, and all that. I announced today, Will, this is going to be news to you, and I got to have you on this whenever we figure out when it's going to happen. I am breaking my comic book or superhero movie TV show embargo for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Going to do a live stream sometime after that movie comes out. Only because my youngest and I went back and watched the first Ant-Man last weekend. He loved it. We're going to watch the second one this weekend. And he really wants to see. This is the year that we really go to the movies. We got a bunch of things lined up, and he can't wait to go back to the theater. So we're going to do that. So that's my pitch.
That's me and my daughters. That's our movie because it's a father-daughter movie. So we watch that every year.
Really good.
And we are so pumped to see it. So I will be there with bells on. I don't even know what that is.
And I will probably see it because it's a wide release film. I love not really big on Power Rangers, but hey, that's another time. Unfortunately, it looks like the battery died for Mr. Will Johnson's computer. But yes, folks, check us out on the Cinephile Hissy Fit, where I was again. It has me on his show, but he has me on there as well, which I appreciate. And you could check out our stuff at for our live viewers who tuned in tonight. Appreciate you. Thank you for 10 years of listening to us. We're going to be around until I lose my voice. So there you have it, folks. We appreciate every single one of you. And yeah, next week is another e-ticket, but it's going to be an e-ticket or evil ticket. And we'll see after next week if Ian Simmons will want to come back when we talk snakes on a train. So stay tuned for that, folks. And I would just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.